Workshop 13, WBS, LOEs and setting the baseline. We'll first look at how WBS activities and LOE activities work, and then we'll create and assign a baseline. So make sure that you have your Ausbuild bid for facility extension open, ensure you have no filter, and ensure you have the layout Ausbuild Workshop 10 with float applied, and you'll have the float activities and float columns. First of all, we're going to create a WBS activity and see how that calculates. So click on the bid document node, add an activity, give this activity a name of WBS, and go to the General tab and change the activity type to a WBS summary. At this point in time, if you press F9 to reschedule, you will see that the WBS summarizes the activities from the earliest start to the latest finish. Move your mouse to the left hand side and you have the little white envelope appearing below the mouse pointer, and drag it up to under delivery plan. If you press F9 to reschedule, you'll see now it summarizes the activities under this node here, and if you were to drag it up so it's in the technical specification and press F9 and reschedule, you'll see now that it's summarizing the activities in this node. You'll notice that the WBS node total float is displaying the finished float, the same as the activity above, and not the start float. If you select Tools, Schedule, Options, and go down to Compute Total Float as the other option of Start Float, and close and schedule, you'll see that the float here is now 7 days, which is equivalent to the start float. Although this is not a major issue, it's one of the scheduling options available in the software. I would recommend that you leave it to the finished float, and therefore what will happen is that the float bar and the float value will be the same. The float bar is always displayed as the finished float and not the start float. Next thing we want to do is to apply the layout without float. This will enable you to see more clearly what is happening when you create an LOE activity. So now we're hiding the float bars. Next thing we want to do is to take this WBS activity, we'll rename it LOE, and we'll also change it to a level of effort. And at this point in time you'll see that the bar has gone dark green, which is the color assigned to it here. We'll drag it down below Review Delivery Plan. If you recalculate at this point in time, it will actually mark this actually start and actually finished, and you won't be able to link it up. I'll show you. If I press F9 now, you'll see that it's now actually started and actually finished. So you don't recalculate until you've actually put in some relationships. So we want to add some relationships to show you how a level of effort activity calculates. So I'm going to drag a relationship from 1060, the start of 1060, to the start of the LOE activity, and from the end of the LOE activity until to the start of activity 1070. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to do that, and you'll see now I've got that relationship, and if I press F9 to recalculate, you'll see that the LOE has spanned from the start of that activity to the finish of that activity. Now I'm going to add a relationship from the end of document delivery methodology to the LOE, and also show you that you can put relationships to activities outside. So we will go from the end of the LOE outside this WBS to activities in another WBS node. And so I've got a relationship here, and when I press F9 and reschedule, you'll see that the LOE has spanned from here to here. You can actually, I'll add a few more relationships. You can see how as I add relationships, it's not exactly as per the book, but you can add multiple relationships to an LOE. So an LOE has an advantage over a WBS that it allows you to span activities from different WBS nodes, but it ends up with relationships against it. On the other hand, a WBS doesn't have relationships. So that's how you use both an LOE and a WBS activity. And then what we want to do now is to delete this to remove it. So the next thing we want to do is to set a baseline. Before we set the baseline, we need to go to Admin Preferences, and ensure under Earn Value that we have the at completion with current date set, and we're not using the planned dates. If you use budget value current dates, that's not too bad, but this is the setting I prefer to use, and close. If you are using an ePPM database, then this admin menu will not be there, and you need to log into the web, and you need to check the under the administration area that this setting has been set. Next thing we need to do now is to set the baseline. So we select Project, Maintain Baselines, and we can add. We'll take a copy of the current project as a new baseline, and we select OK. So that's now copying this project as a baseline. You can then rename it if you want to. So I'm going to rename it Baseline. And again, the baseline type, you can select whatever baseline type you like customer sign-off baseline if you want to. And the baseline type is set in the admin preferences. We select Close, and now we set a baseline. So we now need to go to Project, Assign Baselines, and although we create a baseline project, usually I assign it as both the project baseline and the primary baseline. So irrespective of what bars I show, I'm always going to show a baseline bar and not the planned dates. So at this point in time, we have created baseline, we've assigned it as a primary and project baseline, and now the next thing we need to do is to display the baseline bars. So let's take a copy of this layout. So we'll select Layout, Layout, Save As. I'm going to call it Workshop 13 Baseline. So this becomes a new layout that we will show the baseline bars on. We save it, and now we need to select the bars form to display the baseline bars. So we need to make sure we are displaying the remaining level, the actual level of effort, actual work, remaining work, and critical work. You don't have to display these if they are not being used. This does add additional lines to your print preview footer. We need to make sure we're showing the milestone, percent complete, and summary bar, which is these bars here. Now, the next thing we need to do is to have a look at what baseline bars we want to display. So we show the project baseline bar and the project milestones. If we apply, you'll see the baseline bar there and underneath the milestones. Recent addition I've made to my template is to allow you to display the primary baseline summary bar, and if we apply that, then you'll see a baseline summary bar here. It's entirely up to you whether you display that or not. I will turn it off. So now we're just seeing the activity baseline bars and not the summary baseline bars. So we'll close this form, and we now need to display some columns. So we click on the columns form. We want to make sure we've got the activity ID, the actual name, the activity name, sorry. We need to have the percent complete. So we need to have the activity percent complete, so I can drag that across. I need the original duration. I want the remaining duration, which will be found under durations. So remaining duration. I want the start, finish, total float, and variance baseline project finish date. And this will give us the variance. So if the activities are late, it'll give you a negative value. These bars that I brought across, usually I actually have them formatted in the center. I find it looks a lot tidier if it's formatted in the center. And OK, and what we can do is we can click on apply to see the changes. I can't quite see all the columns, so let me make this a bit wider. So we have these columns added now. So at this point in time, we're ready to update the program. You can make the timescale daily or weekly, whatever you feel like. I prefer to see it daily because then you can see exactly where the activities are started and finished. You might want to adjust the width of some of these columns, but now we're ready to update the schedule.